Hi, and welcome to the Quick and Dirty Romance Podcast. We're your hosts, romance authors and bicoastal friends for life. I'm Skye McDonald, author of the hockey goalie romance Scoreless.
I'm Sarah Smith, author of the steamy hockey romance Suck My Puck.
And together we are Sarah Skye, author of the best-selling Unlikely Pairing series.
Each episode will dive deep into what it's like to be a contemporary romance author. We'll talk writing inspiration, give you the inside scoop about the publishing world, chat about how we write those infamous sex scenes, and more. And then we'll pull out and wrap it up in 30 minutes or less, but we promise to leave you satisfied.
If you haven't already read our books, what are you waiting for? Be sure to check them out after you listen to this podcast, and please DM us with any questions or requests for future episodes or comments on today's episode that you might have.
So, before we start, this would be a good time to put in the headphones and make sure sensitive listeners aren't in the room because we're about to talk about sex. Skye.
Woohoo! Yes! I am so ready for this. I'm so ready. In my newsletter and in my Facebook group, which if you are not on or a part of, you definitely should be, I have recently hosted polls to discover what romance readers do and do not like to see in stories. This all came about actually after conversations with you, Sarah, and discussing like what kind of acts people actually want to see. So today we're diving into the data and bringing you the results to see what you think.
Yes. So to kick things off, you asked your readers, your Facebook group members, the question, what is your most preferred heat level in a romance? And about half of them responded, bring on the smut. So like the more kink, more participants, the steamier the better. And honestly, I was really happy to see that.
Yeah?
Like I was like super excited.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised. I don't know if I was surprised, but I was excited to see that. And then, the other half more or less said they liked steamy, multiple explicit scenes and or a lesser participant or a lesser contingent said PG-13, right?
Mhm.
But I would like to note that none of the voters in the poll selected closed door or only one sex scene. So that was interesting. As a reader, what do you fall into, and are you surprised?
Okay. So as a reader, I am with the majority on this one. Like the smuttier the better for
Hmm.
romance, obviously. If I'm reading like a Winston Churchill biography, I don't need to know that part of it. You know what I
Amazing.
mean? But no, as a romance fan, yes, the smuttier the better. I personally really enjoy that. And I was kind of surprised that Closed Door didn't get any votes. But to be fair, these were
Yes.
for your readers, your Facebook group members. So like the people who read your book, Skye, they know that like you write open door romance.
Hmm.
Definitely not like erotica, the smut, like not super, super
No.
smut like on that end, but multiple open door.
Yeah. Yeah, this is
So
not a Gallup poll, right? This
no.
is not a random straw sampling or anything unbiased. Like, yes, these are my readers and my newsletter. Love all of you, by the way. But yeah, so they're going to be, and also I'll throw in like one of the questions that we're not going to be discussing is like I had asked, were they surprised at the heat level when they first read me? And most all of them said, no, you're spot on. Um, I guess a couple said you're a little spicier than I would have expected, but most of them were like, no, no, I expected this. So yeah, we're looking at readers who have enjoyed and are following along with someone who writes multiple open door scenes with a variety of like experimentation, but definitely not. I don't think I fall into the kinky or the better situation. I would say no.
Right, right. But it is important to like to make note that like the people answering these questions like this wasn't like people off the street that you just grabbed.
Right,
Not
exactly.
like a
This
con-
isn't, yeah, this isn't
yeah.
like yeah, no, no. This is definitely a biased audience, and I'm assuming that the people who are listening to us now are also in a biased audience because they've been following us and they follow our podcast. So I'm wondering if like in general people would say like yes, bring on the smut, the weirder the better, or the more the better, or if people are like, no, I kind of like it to like I like a few sex scenes, but other than that, let's keep it going. I think both have their place. And also I know readers, I mean, of course you can enjoy both, right? Like it's
Yeah.
all good. All
Yeah.
good.
That's okay. So like as a reader, Skye, I just want to get your opinion. Are you the smuttier the better? Or like where do you where do you fall on this scale, I guess? Because I feel like you're different from me.
Yeah, we are. We have met.
Yeah.
I would probably fall into the multiple explicit scenes. I mean, yeah, it depends on also what I'm reading. Like if I
Yeah.
know I'm reading some sort of, if I know if I'm reading like a Why Choose, then I expect to see a lot going on. If I'm reading a standard like office place contemporary romance and suddenly it's like, whoa, whoa, what's going on here? Then that doesn't feel like it fits. So I guess I like it
Right.
for it to fit. But I do, as we've always said, like if I get to the end of the book and if there's not any sex in the book, I'm like, I thought I thought I've been robbed here. So I
Yeah.
definitely like to see intimacy when it comes to a romance book. Or you've told me that it's not, right? I don't like the surprise. But yeah, I would probably be in the category that was like multiple scenes, bring it on. But I don't know if I would have pushed the button for bring on the smut.
Okay. I think I definitely like steamier than you do. So
Yeah.
like yeah, but that's cool. It's just I just thought it was really encouraging to see that like I don't I'm gonna sound like I'm hating on closed door. I'm really not. I just thought it was exciting to see that nobody really wanted closed door because I don't really
Yeah.
like closed door.
Yeah. I was pleased to see it, and I was also pleased just to see people like unabashedly saying like no, bring on the smut. Like, instead of like feeling like they should be like, oh well, maybe, like, no, just say what you want. So I appreciated that. I like that. All right, next poll question that I asked was, what do you do when you hit a sex scene in a book? Overwhelmingly, as in 84.6%. Our readers love the steam. They read every word, red-faced, hot and bothered, maybe more than once. Okay. So I really did not have anybody say, no, I skipped the whole thing, which I have heard from like unsure romance readers, like people who like the story, but they're not comfortable reading sex on the page. They'll just kind of skip that part. But the readers who were polled here said no. They want to read it and they want to read it multiple times. Interesting that the other option I offered was skim and get on with the story. No one chose that, but readers wrote in that they will read the sex if it forwards the plot. However, I had several comments that said if it drags on and doesn't inspire the readers, they will skip it and move on. So does this surprise you, and how does that inform your writing, Sarah?
Um, honestly, it didn't surprise me that uh so many of the people that you polled enjoyed reading the entirety of the sex scene just because again, like they're fans of your books and that's
Hmm.
if you don't like that, they wouldn't read Open Door, Steamy Romance. Um, I'm a writer who obviously if you've read anything that I've written, like I write multiple open door love
Hmm.
scenes in any of my stories. So I was really excited to see that many readers read every word that, well, I
Hmm.
mean, they read all of the sex scene,
Yeah.
I guess. Like everybody, I say every word, like some people read slower or faster, so like, whatever. Um, I was surprised that nobody said that they skimmed because
Hmm.
like you, I have encountered a lot of people who like strangely, a lot of people who read romance, open
Hmm.
door romance, who admit that they skim the steamy open door love scenes. And then part of me is like, well, why do you read them? Because that's like a good chunk of the book. But also like whatever, if you don't want to read it, that's fine. You can skim whatever you want. So it was really heartening to see that many people read those scenes because sometimes I guess as a writer, I mean, I don't want to say I'm like offended because it's not that big of a deal, but like I think I try really hard to write good, compelling open door sex scenes. And it would like I wouldn't love hearing like a reader tell me, I loved your book. I skimmed through the sex scenes though. Like then part of me would be like, well, why'd you read my book then? Because like sex is a
Hmm.
pretty part of it. So yeah, I was just really excited to see that many people like happily read all of the sex scenes or admitted that that they happily read all of the sex scenes in a romance book.
So I remember when I debuted Not Suitable for Work, I had one reviewer, it was a husband and wife podcasting team, and I remember them talking about the book, and they were like, "There's a lot of sex in this book, but every time forwards the plot. It increases the intimacy between Celeste and Ben." And I have worked to make sure, like the readers who unprompted wrote in the options, like, I want the sex to forward the plot, right? It shouldn't be like one of the readers actually used the word gratuitous, which makes me laugh because that's what my mommy says anytime somebody's kissing on TV. It doesn't matter what's going on, it's gratuitous. But love you, mom. She's not listening. Um, the whole thing the whole thing about like making sure that it like it what it tells me is that romance readers are reading for the plot, right? Like that they want to see the steam and they want to see the wild sex and they're interested in that, but they also want to see what's happening with the story that we're building, because if not, I mean, you might as well go to literotica, right? Like if you want to just
Yeah.
read books, like stories about people having sex, you can do that. So it tells me that they're here for the story and they're here for the steam, and I really love that. I love that a lot. So that was very interesting to me.
Yeah, I think that's really cool to get that perspective because I do think some people, usually people who don't read a lot of
Hmm.
romance, are very dismissive of the sexual content in a
Hmm.
romance book. And that's always really like pissed me off because
Yeah.
like, I don't think they truly understand like it's not just like sex to have sex, which even if it is, that's fine too. Like whatever. It's a book. It's a
Hmm.
romance book. Characters can be having sex for whatever reason, but like especially in the romances that I think that we write, there's a reason for every scene that happens. And it's not just because like, oh, we want to make people blush by like writing a dirty sex scene. Like, no, it's important to the characters and it's a
Yeah.
romance, right? Like it's a steamy romance, a steamy romance. It is expected that you have open door love scenes. So like if you don't deliver on that, you're not delivering on the promise that you made the reader, So
I mean, and I'm going to put this is not a new argument, but I've been watching Reacher. Um,
I love
who
Reacher.
doesn't?
Yeah.
Who doesn't? But nobody's gone over there like, he really should be killing less people. He should
Right?
stop beating this person to a pulp. It's just gratuitous. Now, some people do, and they don't watch it, and that's okay because
Yeah.
it is fairly violent. But my point is that if you are not saying of movies that are like action or featuring things like that, this is just, you didn't need this murder. You didn't need this scene. Like if you're saying that and you're not watching it and you're saying that about the sex, cool. You're holding to your principles. But if you're like too much sex, but then you're like murder, then I want you to think about what you're doing there. Because yes, you're right. We're writing acts that occur between almost all people have sex. Very few people will kill someone with their bare hands. Don't try it at home, kids. Um, but like the whole point is like, if you don't flinch at violence, why would you flinch at something that is natural and like happy? So I think that it's an important thing to think about in terms of how we use the intimacy and the fun schmexy scenes, but also like building the story on it. That was really, yeah, that was an interesting piece.
That's cool. Okay, can I just say I'm really glad that you brought up Reacher, not just because I think it's a good show. Like,
Yeah,
can I just say like the actor who sorry, this is this is not
we're
relevant to
going
the
fast
conversation
and
we're
loose
having,
today. I like it.
right? I like the actor who plays Reacher in this series. I wasn't a fan of Tom Cruise as Jack Reacher because I just don't think that that was believable. But like this actor who is Jack Reacher is like huge and like ripped and
Hmm.
hulking. Sorry, so that's great. Sorry, I just wanted to put that out there. Love Reacher.
Love
But also,
Reacher.
yeah, I think it's cool that, or I think it's very appropriate that you brought up that as an example because I feel like at least in the society that like you and I, Skye, live in, like we're both in the United States. So
Hmm.
obviously this is the world that we're in currently. Like I think we have a lot, our culture has a lot of we're fine with violence, but we're not fine with sex in
Yeah,
that way, which I think is insane because again, not that I think we should be throwing like sex scenes up all the time. Like obviously that's not appropriate to do that. But like we are very tolerant of violence in a way that we're not
very.
of sex. And I feel like, it's probably a cultural thing. Because I remember okay, do you remember that Netflix it was a book, but then Netflix made a movie of 365 days and it was like that super
Yes.
erotica like
Yes.
romance. Okay, so I watched it.
Okay.
I don't, it was great. Um but I remember I was reading an interview with the main character, the actor who played the main guy in that
Hmm.
movie, and he's Italian, and he and a lot of the questions that he was getting was like, oh my gosh, you were shooting all of these like really steamy sex scenes and there were like multiple in the movie. Did that make you feel uncomfortable? Like, was that weird? And he's like, no, it was fine. Like I grew up in Italy and like we have stuff like this on TV. Like it's not a big deal. Like
Hmm.
don't feel shame about sex or I'm not quoting him word for word,
No, but
but like the gist of it was like sex is not something to feel ashamed about. Like it's natural, like you said. It's nothing to be embarrassed or to make people feel bad about. So it's just
right.
interesting that our culture takes the opposite approach
You
on that.
know,
Violence is fine, you
but
know.
violence is fine. And like I think, this is where I don't want to get into a whole thing about the state of our, society, but like I mean, my Hinge profile said when I had one, it said it said like let's talk more about it. And one of my lines was our society's puritanical take on sex because that got me a lot of swipes by the
Oh,
way.
I'm sure. Yeah. Also, you're very pretty, Skye. So like I'm
Oh,
sure you were just like wading in an ocean of like dicks with
yeah.
that.
Yeah, well, at least I had a little boat. But we have not escaped our puritanical roots in those ways. I firmly believe that. And you're entirely right. Like, and also too, like countries where sex is a lot more accepted and like considered like just a thing, they have a lot less like terrible violent crimes and even teen pregnancies, like, and I don't want to get into all that, but like it's true. So yeah, it would be nice to like I love, and this is another reason why I love working in romance, right? And of all the genres, like talking to other people who just unabashedly own like, no, I enjoy sex and I enjoy talking about it. I'm here to talk about it all day. So yeah. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. I think that's awesome. And I also that's why I was really excited to read that like that many of the
Hmm.
respondents to the survey were like, yes, I read I read
Every word.
every word. And that's what's so exciting is that like to me, to know that the people that were reader or to know that our readers are like open and honest and like not shameful about things like that. So yay.
Well, and I'm going to even pull in a quote from a reader now, which, I had these polls and I got data and pie charts and stuff, but I also left some open-ended. And I'm going to quote a reader who said, "Sometimes the sex scenes give me new ideas for things to try with partners. Other times it's fun to imagine being in the situation as a fun fantasy." Seeing what other positions or kinks authors may have that maybe I never thought about. Plus, I love the smut. And then another reader said, "I enjoy getting ideas of things to try. It's a turn on to read, especially if you're in a dry spell yourself, and it's just fun. Women need to talk about the need more and more candidly, and I think romance novels are a good way to start."
That's so great. That is such a thoughtful like response to
Yes.
a question that could have been like diminished or like
Hmm.
missed. No, that's really, and I think all of those points are valid. It just makes me happy to like think that a romance book can help a reader feel more comfortable in their sexuality and like just give them pleasure in a way that maybe that they wouldn't feel comfortable getting from any other outlet. So that's really like that's honestly really exciting. I'm really
Right.
happy.
Let me share a couple more of these because I'm reading them again and I'm like, just, somebody said, "I don't really buy it for the sex scenes, but I will read if they support the story." Um, but then some people said, "I'm not sure, but I like it."
I
Um,
okay, I read that one and I'm like, yeah, it's okay if you don't know
you don't
why.
have to
Like,
know.
yeah, you can
It
just enjoy
just
it
makes
for what
me
it is.
feel it's good for the love life. Those who don't do read. Oh, I love that for you though. I like
Yeah.
the excitement of new ideas to use in my own sex life. And then finally, I like reading romance. Sex is typically typically in parentheses, part of a strong relationship and therefore an important part of romance. Plus, let's be real, it's titillating. In recent years, it's educated me a lot, which has been good for my marriage, especially now that the kids are grown. Good job.
Oh my gosh, can I
Love it.
Skye, I just want to say, like, it's so, I didn't realize that so many readers like read romance books and like took those parts of the sex scenes and incorporated them into like their own personal lives. I think that's really,
I love that.
that's so exciting.
Awesome. It's awesome.
Especially considering the way that like you and I write our, it's not the same, obviously, because we're two different people, but like we both like in our sections, I feel like we prioritize consent and
Yes.
female sexual pleasure
Hmm.
and female orgasms.
Hmm.
I think that's so exciting because I think for a really long time those were, and not, I'm not trying to say it changed with us or anything like that. Like it's been changing,
Yeah.
you know, for a lot of
But
reasons for a
also
long
like
time.
introducing an idea that maybe you haven't done before, but maybe you wanted
Yeah.
to. So like I love that. I'm glad that, I'm glad that this is not only like fun for people who are not currently in relationships, but also inspiring for those who are. And also some people are like, I don't know, I just like it. Good for you. That's all you gotta know. All right, let's hear some more data. Let's hear some more data because I knew this episode was going to take a while. Let's keep it moving. What do we have next, Sarah?
So you asked your readers and Facebook group members what sexual acts that they enjoy reading in a book, and they could
Yes.
check as many or as few as they wanted. And so when I looked at this, I was really, I was like, I was surprised, but like in a
Hmm.
pleasant way because it was really cool to see how open-minded people were,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And not to let, we're not going to go through all the charts, but oral is wildly popular.
Specifically, when the male main character goes down on the female main character. That was
Yes.
the most popular, I think.
Yes.
Which,
Um,
yay, yes, that
yay.
should be the most popular.
Yeah.
Oh, yay, good job.
The least voted for because like again this was only to check if you enjoyed it, right? It doesn't not checking it didn't mean you don't enjoy it.
Right.
But somebody wrote in, like a few people wrote things in, but the least voted for in terms of things that I wrote in was cuck, which I
Mm,
also know some people did not really know what that meant. So
sure.
obviously, I mean, not obviously, it's not obvious, but a cuck fantasy is where like somebody is being cuckolded, like so they're watching their partner have sex with somebody else, which I've not seen. Well, scored on. She has a little fantasy. Anyway, you might want to check that out if you've ever. It's not like a full scene. She just fantasized about it. So if you're interested, scored on. Shameless plug. Um, was there anything there that it surprised you, Sarah?
So, okay, not necessarily, I wasn't like shocked, but like so like the most popular one, like you said, was oral, him
Hmm.
going down on her. And the second most popular was oral, her going down on him. And I didn't, not that I was like, negatively surprised. I was just like surprised that that was what was second after that. But like it makes sense because at least for me, when I'm writing the characters, like both characters, by the time they're having sex with each other in the story, like they
Hmm.
want to give pleasure to um their partner,
Hmm.
like that is a I don't want to say easy because whatever. Like I don't mean in that way, but that's like a logical way to do that in a sexual way, especially like in a romance. I've noticed like a lot of times like the first time the characters are together intimately and they don't have full on intercourse,
Hmm.
they like a lot of the time they're doing oral,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I tend to use that as like a lead up
Yeah,
or the opening to sex because I will want her to come.
yeah.
And I try to make it realistic that like now in current books, I try to make it more realistic that like just banging away at a woman does not like, not necessarily like some women can. I would
Mhm.
also like to note that oral she goes down on him is tied with bondage, fingering. So that's another thing. I'll use hand jobs a lot as like not quite a full scene, but a little bit. And then the other one is toys.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
that was all tied for like the number two spot in terms of things people enjoy. So oral, where she's giving oral, tied with bondage, fingering, and then toys. So that was interesting to me. Like all very strong, popular pieces.
Yeah, I was surprised too to see the bondage thing too, and not in a bad way. I just didn't know that many readers would want to see that like in a
Yeah.
mainstream steamy romance, you know. That's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Maybe that means we can get more adventurous with our characters because
Well,
readers want to see that more.
that's true. Let's see. Somebody said somebody said honestly there was nothing on the list I wouldn't want to read about. But then the second but somebody also said um toys, I like the idea of normalizing using toys to enhance sexy times. And then somebody said bondage blindfolding so hot, love to read it and do it. But they did not like pearl necklaces. So,
Okay. Okay.
but several people did. Several people said yes on him coming on her, which is
Oh,
definitely something I have used in books.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I was excited by this, but then I took this same exact table of acts and selections and said, what do you not like to read in a book? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So,
And okay, so can I just say happily, I saw that oral was not
mhm.
it was not an act on this list. Like happily people want to see that in books. Yay.
Yes.
That's
So,
good to see.
yeah, our top things that we were just talking about that people did like were 0% voted for on the things you don't like. So cool.
Mhm. Yeah.
People did not like choking.
Oh,
Okay. That's
interesting.
interesting. Yeah. That
Yeah.
was that was and also I'm going to say the number of response because these were optional responses, the number of responses overall to things you did not like were much 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 lower, like a third of people clicked anything at all if you're following that data. So this is still not a very high number, but choking, ass play in terms of licking, and cuck were the top three things people were like nah. So that was
That
interesting
is
to
so
me.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, can I say I have written in my books, not it's not choking, so nobody's being choked, but like
Hmm.
scenes where like the male main character, because the female main character likes it, he puts his hand around her
Yep.
neck. He's not choking her, he's not doing
No.
anything like that, but she just likes the feel of his hand on her neck, putting very light pressure. So it's
Hmm.
not, and the readers that have read my book, specifically in my hockey romance series, like they love that, which is really surprised
Hmm.
people. Readers love reading about that. Um, which is kind of cool. Honestly, I just think it's cool that like people or readers were just so open about
Yeah.
almost anything. And of course,
Yeah.
like there are hard limits, of course, like with anything.
Sure.
And you know, not everyone's going to want to read about every single act you could ever do, but like it's just I think it's really cool to see how open-minded people were.
Yeah, because even in the response of like, why did you say that? Or is there anything that you find offensive and will totally turn you off? Pretty much everybody who responded was like, no, I'm good. Right. So,
Yeah.
like, I think even in these selections, I think it's fair to say some people were like, oh, yeah, probably not that. And yeah, choking because, and I will also pick up the thread that one of the things that people do say are like, no, no, is anything that's not consensual.
Yes.
So I think that there's choking that's super hot and there's choking that's like, what are you doing?
Right.
So, like, absolutely, that makes sense to me. The ass thing, which I'm going to go into, I said what I said, is I'm going to quote another person. Hey, hold on. Where I don't know where it is. I can't find it. Basically, like don't give me anything. Oh, not hygienic in real life. If there is anal, don't go directly to vaginal if there was no condom first or anal to mouth. That may be fine for some people, and I've read those scenes, but they just take me out of the story. And I do think, like, and we've talked about this before too, like don't write a scene without lube, right? Like, I mean, obviously, like if you're writing an anal scene, don't write an anal scene without lube. Like, it's not, it's not good. Okay, so like, I definitely think pulling people out of the story with something that's like, no, that's no, is the problem.
Yeah.
And people feel like real polarized about the ass. Like, I'm just gonna say it. So,
No, and
they do.
that's very fair. Like it, because sometimes depending on what book you're reading and how the author handles it, if you're not addressing those things, it can really take you out of the story. And I totally get that.
Hmm.
So that is good to know that maybe if in an instance, if an author wants to write that, you just need to write it in a realistic way and account for
Yeah.
those, account for hygiene and like cleanliness, and then the reader will enjoy it. And that's really, I mean, that's not changing too much about your writing process. You're just
Yeah.
adding a little bit more detail to make it more realistic so more readers can enjoy it. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it is too. I think it is too because yeah, like overwhelmingly the commentary that I got from this was just like, I like it all, just do it right.
Yeah.
So I think that yeah, I think for authors listening, like it's not a matter of like, oh gosh, I have to include this, but I can't include this. Like they really did like my readers really overwhelmingly said like whatever you include is cool, just make it good, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's the heart. I mean, we could have TLDR'd this this whole episode and been like, write a good story, the end. um
Right, right.
so that's the end of that's what the data says, write a good story.
Yeah.
So I don't know, any other thoughts on that, Sarah?
No, I honestly, this was a really cool thing that you did, Skye. Thank you for sharing this information that you got on our podcast. And thank you to all of your readers and Facebook group members who were comfortable enough to share all of this information. I think it goes a long way in destigmatizing sex, specifically like just not only sex in romance books, but just like sex in general. People just can feel more
Hmm.
comfortable about having it and being curious about it. And as long as as long as you are consenting with a consenting partner, do whatever you want, and nothing is off limits as long as you are enjoying it and it's okay. I
Yeah.
just think it's just cool to see that in this represented by actual data. So that's cool.
It is. It was very like I was very excited to see all of these things. And I really love the comment about how like we as women need to be talking about this more. So I am this has been really awesome for me to like be able to read and learn more about what my readers are thinking. And I really shout out to my readers. And if you are listening and you want to join in, like I am here to talk about, as Sarah and I are both here to talk about anything. So if these were interesting commentary to you, then you should definitely hit us up on our social medias and feel free to follow along because we are always ready to normalize talking about this kind of stuff. This has been great for me. Was it good for you, Sarah?
Hell yeah, it was good for me.
We couldn't end it any other way. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen. Go read our books. We are on Instagram together at author Sarah Skye. I am on Instagram, but I am mostly on Facebook these days. Author Skye McDonald is where you'll find me. My Facebook group, in case you're curious, and I will include the link, is called Sky's the Limit.
And you can find me on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. I am at author Sarah S. We love to hear from you, so reach out and DM us with any questions or requests for future episodes.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you soon.